Hello and welcome to another episode of the Contractor Growth Show. My name is Mark. I'm your host. And today I'm talking with Travis Klavohn at Klavohn Studios in Acworth, Georgia. Travis, thank you so much for being with us today.
Thank you, Mark. It's a pleasure to be with you.
Fantastic. So traditional cabinet makers, we've seen some of the work that you guys do. It's beautiful. Maybe you could just tell us a little bit about the history of Klavohn Studios, kind of how you got started and where you guys are at today.
Well, there's a history of my family. It's a family trade that goes back 5 generations in the U.S. We brought it over from Germany when my ancestors immigrated. And then there's the history of our business, Klavohn Studios, and the two are linked but somewhat different. But I grew up doing woodworking ever since, well, as long as I can remember. I built cabinets with my dad. He had a construction company. He was a general contractor in Charlotte, North Carolina, and I built cabinets with my grandfather, and I've always just done woodworking. Now, I have to say that when I did my apprenticeship a long time ago in fine furniture manufacturing, I really didn't intend to have a construction business. I actually took a very different path for the first 27 years of my career and was in a corporate job working in the insurance industry, something very, very different than construction. But I always did woodworking on my own. And the business of Klavohn Studios started in the midst of the COVID pandemic when everything was shut down and everyone was in their house going crazy. I was very fortunate to have a friend that asked me to do one woodworking job for them as a favor. And I did that just to get out of the house. And at the end of that year, what was it, 2020 or 2020? I can't even remember. At the end of that year of the pandemic, I was literally working out of my basement. And I had contracts for kitchens and bathrooms. And I decided then that, oh my goodness, I just, at age 50, I kind of screwed up and started a construction company. So
wild.
That was the birth of Klavohn Studios. And after a whole bunch of scrambling around to get the business set up and find the right place to do the business, we were just off and running.
Fantastic. So interesting. So, something that I love to talk about on the show, we meet builders that in many cases have had another career, and whether it be finance, you were in insurance, you have this long family tradition, and so inevitably that's got a lot to do with how you found yourself, in this tradition, kind of carrying it on. But you had a career in insurance and that was working well. And what that tells, especially when it's like a big pivot, a big change, it tells me that you spent a lot of time in the business world, and that coming back into this and starting Klavohn Studios here was kind of a really thoughtful decision, because you could have kept doing insurance, right? I also saw that you would have had a political career at different levels that I'd love to talk about some. Yeah. But how has coming from this insurance sort of background kind of influenced the way that you look at this as a business decision? With the thoughtfulness of there's different, I've got a lot of different skills here. I've got a career, I can keep doing this, but instead I'm going to kind of pivot into creating the studios here.
Well, I would like to say that there was some overarching business strategy. There was none. There was none at all.
Okay.
And what I will tell you is the same thing that I tell woodworkers that want to come and be a craftsman as part of my team.
Uh-huh.
And I don't think that you can plan to be a fine woodworker. I don't think that you can set out a strategy to do it. You really have to have a keen desire to create something out of wood. And quite frankly, I was doing woodworking for free before I did it for money.
Uh-huh.
And I think as a craftsperson, whatever your craft is, whether you're a mechanic or a sheet metal worker or a plumber or an electrician, you've got to have a drive to do that thing and be creative and find joy in your own productivity. And really, that's where I was. When I was in the corporate world, I enjoyed a very successful corporate career, and I really enjoyed the lessons that I learned from that. I learned a lot about general business skills, how to work with customers, things of that nature, which I benefit from today. But at the same time, I always had this desire to create something that was like the fruit of my own labor and to see it in the real world. And really, I think one of the reasons why I pivoted from insurance to woodworking was because it met that real desire to see my own efforts in the real world manifest in the raw materials. And that's one of the real joys of doing the work that I do with customers at Klavohn Studios, is we get to take the ideas and dreams of our customers and solidify those into something that is practical and then create it out of raw materials. And when you're able to do something like that and have joy in the process, but also see the joy and appreciation that comes from homeowners, it's just a real blessing to have that as a new career.
Oh man, I love it. So, I was a builder back in the day and built a few homes, did a lot of additions and remodels. And, there was always a trade that was kind of off to the sides that I was intrigued by, fascinated by, never spent a lot of time in, though whenever I would get over there, I would always just be kind of fascinated and love what was, and it's the woodworking shop, the cabinet shop. Right. And so it was always happening off-site. I guess in some projects, things were happening kind of on-site cabinet building. Not really. I mean, typically, with professional cabinet builders happening in kind of the studio off, to spec. So is there something about, what is it about is there a personality type that tends to work well in a, high-end luxury, woodworking shop, cabinet building shop, working with the wood? But something about the sort of nature of working off-site and having your own studio and your own space that you can completely focus in what you guys are doing, and you come in as a part of the construction team, but you're not really exactly a part of the remodeling team per se. You're going to take the measurements and things, you're going to go off and you're going to spend, a few weeks building these gorgeous wood cabinets and then come back and install them. What's up with that personality style and that way of working, within, but also somewhat apart from the typical kind of remodeling trades of being in a house for for 2 months or whatever and building?
Well, we are a very unique trade, and it's due to the nature of the business. I will say that there are two aspects to answering that question. Number one are the personality traits, like the values that someone brings to the table and their just overall outlook on things and how they do things. The second are skills and knowledge that go along with skills. And the two are very important in making a successful cabinet maker. The skills and knowledge, to be a good cabinet maker, you have to know a whole lot of different things. You have to know drafting. And today you need to know how to do that with computers, with CAD and other projects. You also have to have very strong math skills. And oftentimes you'll get plans that maybe an architect put together, or maybe you got like the front elevation from an architect. But those are kind of more like guidelines. A cabinet maker has to be able to take those rough estimate and then boil it down into shop plans, which goes very detailed in terms of how the joinery goes together and things of that nature. And that's important because when you start getting into the production cycle of a large project, there might be multiple people doing different jobs, and you have to be able to break something apart and give it to someone in a very well documented manner so that multiple team members are working independently, but when they come back, everything is to spec and everything fits together. Those are very important skills. But another aspect of knowledge is you have to know material science, not only just the wood, like behind me, you see very nice cherry wood. You have to know, where is that sourced? What makes good cherry? And if you're selecting the wood, you have to be able to look at the grain pattern, what's got the color and everything, and how it's going to fit together for the project. You have to know supply chain, because sometimes these large projects require large amounts of wood that are coming from one part of the world, which might be subject to disruption in their supply chain. So you have to be able to build that in and set customer expectations based on potential disruption to supply chain. And you have to be able to know other aspects of the project that are not related to your particular trade. For instance, behind me, you see a stone countertop. Well, there's lots of different kinds of stone. You have to know which kind of stone is going to work with that particular project. And of course, you've got plumbing, electrical, all these things have to kind of fit in with the project as a whole. Those are the skills and knowledge. Personality type, you really have to be driven for excellence. In order to do high-end cabinets and trim, you have to be driven for excellence. You have to be able to see it as an art form, and you have to have a drive to make the product work in the real world and be structurally sound, but also be beautiful. And the other thing that I would say is that you have to be able to have the confidence to work independently with absolutely no guidance. Because whether it's a general contractor or a project manager or a designer or architect or a homeowner, they don't know how these things go together. They're not going to give much advice about timelines and anything like that. So you got to be able to take a vision and take that all the way through all the technical stuff through the production and deliver it on time and perfect. And that takes a high level of maturity as well as independence. You have to be an independent worker.
Wow.
Yeah.
Amazing. I'm taking feverish notes over here. So, something that builders have really run into this last few years, I think we've all kind of seen this, is finding, recruiting and retaining a high-level team, right? And so, some of the trades, it's not as required to have people in a really skilled role. And I've always known that having a high-end cabinet shop is kind of the highest level of skill required. And you're really, obviously that's where you're at, and that's what you're seeing here. And so with the knowledge and skill, being able to, you've got a background as an engineer. And so, you came to this, you check off many of these boxes, right? But when you're trying to hire team, how do you find and retain people that, are driven for excellence, that can work with no guidance, that have got strong math skills, the things that you just listed, and can then, see this as an art form, that are able to go into the shop and, you train them for, I don't know, maybe years to develop even more of the actual skill that's required. But how do you kind of find and retain people that are going to meet that high level of standard that's required to do the work that you do?
Well, there are skill gaps when you're working with craftspeople. You're never going to find the right person. That's number one. I think as a leader of a team of craftspeople, you have to be able to recognize the strengths and weaknesses of each individual team member and be able to put together a team that works cohesively. Now, I don't expect the guy who does my doors, for instance, I got one guy who does all my doors and he does a great job. I don't expect him to do all the calculations. I do that for him. And
Okay.
that's my skill set.
Uh-huh.
And if we have a problem with fitment of doors and how they work with the hardware, that's okay. I can figure that out, and I can spend my time looking at technical drawings and figuring all that out. But what I do look for with every team member is that keen desire to do beautiful work and to be recognized for that. If they're coming to a job just for a paycheck, they're just not going to work in this business. It's just, I want the guy who has like or girl. We have females that work with us as well.
Uh-huh.
I want the person who has that innate drive to do beautiful work and be recognized for it. And if they're not getting paid, they're still going to be doing it on their own. And if I don't see that kind of drive, then they're probably not right for this kind of work.
Wow.
Another thing that I do for selecting potential team members, I don't hire them right off the bat and then have them as part of the team. I'll give them a job to do, a small job. Build me 4 doors, and I'll give you the specs. Bring them back, see how you do. I'll pay you for that work, but let's see how you do. And I have also found that works particularly well for the cabinet making trade. Now I'm going to get into something that is more specific to cabinet making and general carpentry as well. Cabinet making and carpentry, at least as far as my personal experience, this is one of those industries which is very much father and son training one generation. And almost all of my team is made up of father and son partnerships, where you've got a father who's been doing it for 30 years, and you got a son who's 18, 19, 20, and he's the greenhorn, but he's learning on the job. That works extremely well. Also, you have a lot of accountability within a family structure that you're not going to get with just W-2 employee who comes off the street. And that works very well for us. But also, I think that we are very fortunate with the geographic area where I have my shop. maybe not every cabinet maker has that luxury.
That is incredible. I mean, the geographic area there in Acworth, I mean, there's a lot of father and son teams, a lot of really tight families that work together on projects like this. Is that what you mean?
In my circle, yes, it's all family businesses. And we're not necessarily, these businesses are not necessarily connected in a legal sense. It is personal relationships, and it is within the business. It's a family business. It might be brothers working together. It might be husband and wife working together as the owner. You know, they might have cousins that are working on their team, and that works very well for us. Where my shop is, we're in a community where cabinet makers have just sort of like, with no planning, we've just sort of like ended up at the same spot. And
Okay.
I don't know, it might be because of the zoning requirements in Cobb County. We can't get industrial zoning in Cobb County, except our little area. So we have lots of little units that are individually owned by these businesses, and we cooperate. So we might have a job that comes in, and maybe I need help with an installation one day for a big project. The father and son team next to me pitches in, and we share with the revenue. And vice versa, they might have a project where they need technical design, and I help them out in that area. So it's very much a cooperative type of a trade. And it's a lot like trades used to be way back in the old days, where, it's father to son, master and apprentice, bringing up the young people, and everyone working together because they choose to, not because they're forced to through some kind of employment relationship.
Wow, that is fantastic. And Travis, I'm really getting, just from the way you're talking, I've actually got my eyes are getting a little watering up here. I'm talking about this father and son. It's just beautiful. Really, I grew up in Memphis, Tennessee, very, very conservative family. And my father, at one point, my dad, Bill, he's almost he's not exactly the pastor at church, but he's very tight in the leadership at his church. He had actually thought about running for, I think it was House of Republican. It was for the House in Tennessee for the Republican side in, this would have been in the kind of mid to late 80s. When you're talking about leadership and talking about all of these elements that just kind of draw all these things together, to me, a lot of it just comes down to a quality that I've actually spoken about on this podcast, very dear to me, and that's leadership. I saw that you ran for and became the Republican Party Senate nominee in 2018 for Georgia. How do you look at leadership? How has leadership kind of affected the business you run, as well as some of this political work that you're doing? How do you look at leadership, and how much does that kind of guide your principles of what you do?
Well, leadership is it's a difficult thing to describe, and I really don't have a good definition for it to share with anyone. But for me, and I think it changes by individual because each individual is different. They bring certain traits to the possibility of leading other people. For me, I have found the way that I lead is by finding joy in things, finding joy in the freedom to start a business, finding joy in what you like to do. I like to do woodworking and other things too, but woodworking in particular in relation to what our conversation is here today. And what I have found is if you bring joy to what you do, other people really, really, that resonates with folks. And especially if that joy and the work that you do is manifest in something that brings joy to other people, that is something that is extremely powerful. It has helped me gain new customers through my business. And I think it's gained me a certain level of respect in the community, whether it was running for office or doing the businesses that I have now. But I think that's just an important thing that I have found that is a critical element of the success of my career and my leadership. It's going to be different for other people. But I will tell you that if you follow a leadership model that is based on your own personal joy and sharing that joy with other people, it has the potential to make you more successful as a business person or a politician or a family member or whatever your goals are. But more importantly, it will give you a more happy and more fulfilled life. And I think that's the real takeaway that I want to give to people today. Find joy, have a better life, and make the world a better place for everyone.
Amazing. Amazing. Travis, what a joy to spend this time with you here and to hear about the story about Klavohn Studios, to hear about the many generations that you guys brought over from Germany, the skills and the personality traits that are required to do this well, kind of your background, and I'd love to just kind of end on this piece about leadership, what you've talked about here. It's true. I've in my own way, I've studied leadership, read John Maxwell's books many times about the 21 immutable laws of leadership. Talked about that here on this podcast, and it's just interesting when I hear folks that are kind of focus on that leadership piece, to just hear how they tend to approach it, and to hear that it's just such a simple way of defining that for yourself, saying it's finding joy in things, and if you find joy, it bring, and especially if it's something that other people find joy in, it's just got a magnetic quality and brings people to it. Man, I love that. Travis, if folks want to get in touch with you guys, if they're looking for a cabinet builder, a furniture builder, a fine woodworker in the Acworth area or the surrounding area, what are the best ways to get in touch with you?
Well, just go to my website, which is www.travisbuilt.com. And you'll see lots of examples of the work that we have done. And my contact information is on there as well. My personal cell phone, as well as my email, is on that website. Fantastic. And we'd be happy to work with anyone out there who likes beautiful woodwork.
I love it. So travisbuilt.com, TravisBuilt, just like it sounds, travisbuilt.com. Beautiful website, shows their beautiful work right there at the front of it. So fantastic. Well, Travis, thank you for being with us today, and wish you guys the best in your journey here over the next few years with the business.
Well, Mark, I appreciate you and the time you've given me. I really appreciate what Rocket Science is doing. There's a real need for tradespeople, especially to connect with other ones. And I think you're doing a really good job here. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Okay, take care.